Again, take your time answering stuff. I edit all my own interviews. So, if you have time to just mull around and think, or if you want me to cut something out, that's great.
Sure.
Um, and yeah, other than that, we'll go from there. So first, I'd like to start with your full name and then where you work and what you want to be called in this episode.
Sure. My full name is Tamanna Ramesh. I work at the Coca-Cola Company. That's my day job. I do more of a commercial role in the food service side of the business. And on the side of my side hustle is basically a career coaching business, which I started 3 years ago. And I want to be called Tamanna or Tamana, whatever
Mhm.
you prefer. I'm okay with a ring to the name if
O-
that's, yeah.
Okay, very cool. So Tamana, we've known each other for quite a bit. We've seen each other at IFT. I would say almost every year, maybe every other year. And you've kind of built up your side business to a very impressive company, I feel. And so definitely want to dive into that a lot more. But first, I always love asking this question, especially to people I know, is like, did you ever think you're going to be a food scientist? Let me hear your origins.
Yeah, I actually never thought about it until somebody first shared that there is an institution offering a program in food engineering.
Hmm.
I believe, 17 years old, looking to select, a college, specialization, etc. And it was a very casual dinner table conversation where a family friend of mine told that there's an institution in a small town near my hometown that's starting up this institution offering food process engineering degree.
Hmm.
Up until that point, I wanted to do some sort of engineering. I think I grew up in India, and a lot of people choose to be engineers before they figure out what they want to be in life, because it's just one of the few things that's preached over a period of time that you're like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, engineering. So I thought about electronics, electrical, and some of the mainstream engineering until I had this conversation, and then I was like, very, very, very sure that I would only study this and pursue this path.
Uh-huh.
At that time, it was a very big risk. I didn't even know that it was a risky path because I was just excited. I've always been a foodie, and it just made so much of sense and excitement to like study about it. So
Hmm.
started off there. The institution I went to, I was in the second batch, so nobody had graduated from that program yet.
Huh.
They had
Okay.
just started that institution like a year ago. So I was in a startup of a university or a college in some sense, but it was backed by the Ministry of Food Processing Industries in India. So I knew that it was credible. It's just not like a proven path.
So let me stop you there on like, so this is a brand new university, and it sounds like there's not really prestige or not proven
Mhm.
prestige. How did you feel about doing that first? Like, was there pushback?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of like confusion because, of course, I was a teenager. I didn't know I was making this big decision for myself, but my parents empowered me to like choose a path and just stick to my gut.
Hmm.
And they were just completely fine with me choosing a uncharted territory and just figuring it out. They didn't have big expectations as such, except like they just wanted to be like happy with whatever I was doing. So I think
Got it.
helped me just ground myself in saying, even though there's no proven success or probability of success established, I want to just study. And I think that was a time where I completely drove my decision based on my heart versus head,
Hmm.
which I think still like makes me feel astonished because now it's harder for me to do that. I try to think of things more rationally and with heart, but it's not always just heart driven. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess as you go older, that happens, right? So I've understood that quite a bit. You always have to do things rationally. I think when people think with their heart, I think um, I just if you don't think things all the way through, it can really hurt you. I actually do think so.
Definitely.
So yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
great. So you eventually decided to move to the United States, right?
Yes.
What made you? And I always like to ask this for specifically for like immigrants. What made you decide to venture forth the United States?
For sure. So, like I mentioned, my institution was like super new, and all the professors I had were actually like from agricultural engineering background, teaching food and food science and technology.
Hmm.
So I always had this quest to like go to a place where this particular specialization was more established. And I started looking at education abroad and looked at US predominantly because I am not very eager to learn new languages, and that at that time was a big barrier in my head that I wanted to choose an English speaking country, and
Hmm.
US made a
Hmm.
lot of sense considering the maturity of the food industry here, and just like the number of options in terms of specializations within that food realm. So I started focusing in and applied to a handful of schools, landed one with full assistantship, which prompted me to move from India to Maine. Now, again, that was another, I don't know, like heart and like just decision made without too much of like overthinking, which I'm
Hmm.
really grateful for because
Hmm.
it was a great school. It was a very small program, but we had a very close-knit community, and it set me up to like, it, I think, adapt in a better way versus throwing myself from a small town in India to like a bigger city. I think I had like stages of adapting, like from there to Maine, Maine to like Georgia, Chicago, and then moving back to Georgia now. But the interest to move was driven by getting quality education in a country which had like established programs in my field or in our field.
So I love to hear this. From what I understand, like America has a kind of a prestige on education, right? I guess in your point of view, and I'm sure you've met with everyone else who said something like that. Why is that the case? I hope that the question makes sense. I'm trying to
Yeah,
get a
yeah.
perspective, on because I have been interviewing a lot of like Indian immigrants or even Chinese immigrants, and they always want to gravitate towards United States universities. Maybe before the stuff that's happening now, but at least now it's or before then, it was known to a place to get a great education. Sometimes I've heard like even staying there allows you to elevate your kind of what is it, social class in a sense, that it's really hard to do in your home countries. It's kind of what I've kind of gathered, but I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think in Asian culture, as you may be familiar, there's a lot of importance given to education and economic empowerment and social mobility, upward mobility, especially in terms of class.
Hmm.
So I think this in the fabrics of the education system and how we are wired to like think, when you navigate from school to college to after, there's definitely so much of focus on the extrinsic measures of success, like getting a good degree from a very well established country which has a strong economy, and thereby eventually leads to opportunities where you earn high salary and have potential runway for growth into a very high lucrative career path.
Mm.
Even though at a young age and even now, I've never been driven by money or the extrinsic identities, but without recognizing, I think subconsciously it is part of the DNA that I have been, the culture I've been raised in. And as you may be also aware, like the Asian Indians, or sorry, Asian immigrants or Indian immigrants are one of the racial minorities who have the highest income
Yep.
as well as the highest wealth in the
Mm.
US. And
Mm.
again, that
Because we
goes
like to
back,
save.
yeah, that goes back to like the fabric of the culture ingrained in money and education and upward mobility being a big part of what's considered a success in life.
Love it. So speaking of upward mobility, you got your PhD in Maine, is that right? Or
I actually did my master's and then pivoted to the industry. So,
okay.
yeah.
Got it. So after you got your master's, you went into industry. I'd love to understand how you've climbed the ranks pretty fast, I would say. And I think your official title Coca is what, like VP of something something
It was director, and now
director.
I pivoted to a different team, and I'm more of a customer integration lead.
I
So,
see.
yeah,
Okay. All right. So, but you're still pretty good at Coca Cola. I'd love to hear kind of your trajectory in the food industry.
hmm absolutely. I started off in a family-owned company based out of Augusta, Georgia, and I can be transparent on this. I started off with like a $52,500 package when I graduated from master's. Again, at that
Mm.
time, Money wasn't a criteria. I really liked the company, and they were making like products for medical weight loss, and I found that to be very rewarding intrinsically.
Hmm.
So once I got the offer, I think it was September, and then I was graduating in December. So they waited for about 3 to 4 months for me to join. I stopped looking elsewhere. I was very happy with the job, the idea of starting small with a small family owned company. So I
Mm.
moved to Augusta, really enjoyed my time there, spent 2 years there. But I think there were some challenges I was trying to overcome at that point in my career. So we were a two people teamed R&D. So I didn't have a lot of like people to bounce ideas off of or learn
Mm.
from. I sort of hit a capacity of what I could like observe from my environment from a fellow food science professional there. And then the other thing is also the company being small, then you also hit like that growth in terms of pay. And when you realize, and at that time I used to follow all the IFT salary survey,
Yeah.
and I used to be like, oh my gosh, I have a master's, I have this, I should be like at this range and whatever, like thought process at that time. So I knew I would eventually hit that, like saturation and want more. But the first 2 years were amazing. I still think those were my most um, exciting period in my career because I was eager to like show what I can do or even prove to myself what I can do. And solving like real problems was so much more exciting than solving like a theoretical academic problem
Hmm.
that I was used to solving up until that point. So I was thinking about, there was still like, I remember this project where we had a third party company who were a big beverage manufacturing company who needed
Mm.
their like acidity and sugar levels and all that optimized. And I was just breaking my head about how do I do it in a large scale of like thousands of pounds of product versus like a small lab scale, right?
Yep.
So those were some of the most exciting experiences I remember. And then I transitioned from there to a Fortune 500, which is Kraft Heinz, and from there to Fortune 100, Coca-Cola. So I think as I have navigated, I've also realized like the size of the company has a direct impact on the number of opportunities, right? Like you have a longer runway, there's more room to grow and grow in different ways than you traditionally could imagine. So I never initially thought after a food science degree I could be doing strategy or corporate work. And then as I slowly like pivoted and tried to navigate different things, I realized that I'm still able to carry that researcher's mindset of being able to test things out, scale it, and the foundation of innovation is so transferable that I'm able to like apply it in so many different realms. So that's been a little bit of my career journey there.
What? So I haven't worked in anything that big, I would say, but I've heard a lot. I have a lot of friends there, and I think sometimes they kind of complain about sometimes is bureaucracy, chaos, and all that stuff, right? So, or more like you're not doing actual work, you're just doing meetings. So I'd love to understand how you navigate those types of interactions because in your first job you did have like two people, and it's okay. I think things got done faster, but whatever. But now with these bigger companies like Kraft Heinz and Coca-Cola, what have you found to be effective working there?
Um, Great question. I think when I was in Kraft Heinz, I was in the R&D side still in terms of the function. And I
Mhm.
think the R&D culture is driven to like being curious and solving problems. So it was a very natural like ebb and flow of figuring out what the scientific problem is, establishing the problem statement, trying to solve it, and everyone racking our like technical brains to like figure it out. So I think the flow was not as challenging because it was a very technical focus. But again, when you try to commercialize it, take it to the plant, production, similar to any small to like large company, there's so many like levels of communication translations that happen and bureaucracy that's there.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest learnings I had was transitioning from technical to like completely non-technical role because the roles I have had so far at the Coca-Cola Company, I've been challenged to define problems that are not scientific. And in some sense, it becomes more of a perception focused problem or a people focused problem that we try to define, but it's hard to define, right? So I was just shooting in the dark, trying to like see what I can solve without knowing what I'm solving for. Especially the first 12 months were like very challenging in that sense.
Yeah.
But over time, I think I've learned to ground myself in like things I want to deliver in terms of outcome of what I'm solving or how I'm spending my time on. I've also sort of intentionally stopped attending meetings where I don't have anything to add to, or where I think the where I think I could just look at the notes and get what I want and I don't
Mm,
need to be
mm,
in it. So I think those are some intentional choices. I mean, if I mean, would I get fired for it? Not at all. But a lot of people continue to just do all the meetings or be present in everything because of this fear of repercussion. But I
mm,
think over time, also recognizing that you have limited time, limited energy, limited bandwidth. If you can clearly like clarify these are the three things you want to contribute and try to always keep the focus on like the impact and outcome, it's a little bit easier to like overcome the bureaucracy and be like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to sit in a meeting with 500 other people where I have nothing else to say. I do lead meetings with like 700 people or 500 people sometimes. And it's like leading it is one thing, but I want to make sure my audience are attending it because they get something out of it, not because just because they're invited, right? So I think some of those mindset shifts are still opportunities for large corporations to like embrace because we are sort of trained in this culture of back to back meetings and
yep.
doing just meetings and filling the time of meeting with content just for the sake of it. So if you could get it done in an email, just do it in an email. If you could just ping someone, do it like that. So I think millennials and Gen Zs have a very great like opportunity here to challenge things and like rethink how things can be done and empower other generations to like embrace that, right? I think that's a very good way to look at it.
Do you have hard rules or tactics on meetings in terms of like, especially on calendar? So like, let's say, do you have like a set, like I'm only going to do a set amount of meetings per week, or I don't know, like, what is a metric of is this meeting important or not?
That's a great question. So I think I did not have like an established like way of approaching that, but this year I've been sort of color coding my calendar
Okay.
to see how much of my time is spent on all the ones in green are like focus time to actually get work done. That's in
Mm,
green. Networking with people, mentors, sponsors, that's in green. Anything I learn is in green. And then all the meetings I run are in like sort of like an orange sort of, and it's not green, orange, red for the obvious translation. It's more like how I color coded. The orange ones are where I need to prepare prior to the meeting, run the meeting, and make sure I deliver content that's relevant for the audience.
mm,
And then I have some that are like just listen and I just gray them out. And then if I have the time, I listen it. But if not, I just like look at the notes.
got it.
That's helped me at least categorize and look at my week and see, okay, like I'm doing a lot of things that are important or what I enjoy doing. Like networking, it's not as important right now in my career, but I enjoy doing it. So I still carve out like a good chunk of time for that. So I think I've started like tracking. I've still not taken any actions to like change the rhythm of how my day goes yet. But that's
Mm.
one thing I'm looking forward to in 2026 to like really lead by priorities and manage by objectives.
Great. So, we're gonna dive into your side business pretty soon, or I don't know, side hustle. I don't know what you want to call it exactly.
Side hustle sounds fun. So
Yeah, so yeah, yeah, right, right,
yeah.
and yeah. But first, I'd like to ask this question: why does your food job rock?
I think because I get to do something that reaches the homes of millions of people every day. I put a product in their house, make them happy or make them safe. In whatever sense, I've always found like an excitement because of it having like a physically tangible day-to-day impact. That's what drew me to studying it, continuing to be in this field. And also being a foodie, it just makes it so much more exciting when you like taste something new and feel like excited about it, and you want to like be a part of putting that on someone's plates or hands. So
Yeah, and you work with one of the like two of the biggest companies, right? Kraft Heinz
yes,
and Coca-Cola. So
absolutely.
that's very impactful. So the reason why I'm talking a lot about time management is because you also run a pretty good side business, I'd say, right? Like you have talked a lot about it on LinkedIn, and you help a lot of, I believe you help a lot of people kind of
Mhm.
progress through their careers. I'd love to hear more about Spark Careers.
Absolutely. So, about 3 years ago, I immigrated to the US in what's called the EB1 visa, which is which is a talent-based, employment-based immigration category. I got my green card, and then I kept thinking, okay, like for all these years, I was on visas and I had all these constraints of what I could do, could not do. And at that point, I had all this freedom and openness to doing anything, right? So
Mm.
I just started asking some family and friends what they think I was already doing that I probably could do more at scale. And it just sort of naturally took a shape of career coaching. I was helping a lot of my friends, family members navigate different challenges, whether it's having a difficult conversation with their managers or building up their resume or prepping for interview and different angles within that. So year one, I just started like freelancing. I think word of mouth spread word that I'm doing this, and I had like three clients in
Mm.
2023.
Mm.
I made probably like less than $1,000.
Good
But
start. Good start.
yeah, good start. And I
Yeah.
absolutely enjoyed just doing it. I would still, I still say it. This is one thing I would still do it for free and still find so much fulfillment. The
Mm.
money is more like an additional reward because it's just so much enjoyable. And then year two, I was really trying hard to get like people management role in the industry job. And I still haven't had like direct reports. Trust me, like even though I've grown so much in my career, it's just been always like I see individual roles. So I asked myself why that was important to me. It was more like a five why method I use whenever I'm stuck with something and I want it so much. I'm like, why?
Do you write that
I
down or do you just think about it? Like how do
I
you
wrote this
yeah.
particular one down because
Mm.
I was, for a long time, I wanted it, and for a while, I thought maybe because I was, I don't know, like the Indian or Asian mindset that I had to be a manager, but then it was not that.
The goalpost always moves.
Yeah, yeah. And then I was like, I don't know what was driving me so much. And then when I did the why, I was like, I really enjoy empowering people. I want
Mm.
to help influence people's careers. And then it was like an aha moment of realizing I don't need my job to enable me to do that. I could do
Got
that
it.
on my own. And that's what I think that clarity gave me the drive to like scale the business. I've coached over 200 professionals so far, some in like a group cohort setting, some in like one-on-one settings. And mostly it's in the realm of, I think I've narrowed down two areas where I make the most impact. One is like interview preparation once they land an interview, but before the interview happens, I do more of coaching around that. And then the second one where I make the most impact is immigration. There are a lot of talented STEM professionals in the US who have traveled similar paths like me, coming from Asian countries or African countries to the US, or are struggling because of the broken immigration system here.
Mm. Mm.
So there are employment based visas that they could get, but companies are not as educated about non-traditional paths. So they still put them in a traditional path that doesn't set them up for success. So I think educating them, talking about things that are such a niche that even large companies don't have the capacity to like break it down and educate the talent, right? They're looking at what's right for the company, and then the talent gets stuck in the process. So I think doing a lot of that this year was another niche that I've carved out for myself in the business.
Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about immigration. So
Mhm.
do you believe today it's tougher than ever to be an like to come to the United States?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's so much tougher than ever,
Mm.
and the landscape changed so quickly in the last few years. So for context, a lot of students who come here have like a 3-year work permit that they get after they graduate if they are in STEM degrees, and food science obviously falls in the STEM classification, right?
Yep. Mm.
And a lot of companies don't want to hire people or students who are just fresh graduates with a 3-year work permit because they cannot expect continuity after that 3-year period. They would be in a position to sponsor. So it's a bit of a challenge because a lot of companies are taking like a big broad blanket decisions on whether to sponsor or not.
Hmm.
And I think immigration or immigrants are looked at like one box versus I think it should be classified like highly talented, high skill immigrants who add value to this all, like all the other side of like having the illegal immigrants or refugees or other types of immigrants who again could add value, but it's not in a traditional sense of STEM addition of value, right? So I think there's gap in workforce that can be filled by this particular group of people. And again, not all the immigrants who come here are talented,
Yeah.
but being able to screen and provide equal opportunity in that sense is something that is an opportunity for many companies in the country too.
So is your job to educate the companies or educate the
Um,
immigrant?
Great question. Right now, I've been actively educating the immigrants and
Mm,
and the talent because
mm,
I want them to know the things that they have in their arsenal to deploy and still navigate and solve this problem. Because there are self-sponsored visas they could apply for that needs them to be active in the community, in the professional community, volunteer, lead workshops, show leadership roles, for example, in professional organizations like IFT.
mm, I see.
I didn't know about it. I was just active because I enjoyed being active. And when the time came that somebody educated me, like how I'm doing to others,
Mm,
I was surprised that everything I did up until that point came together and I was able to immigrate in one of the most difficult categories. So I started actively educating people that volunteering was not optional for immigrants. Especially if they want to continue to work here, it's not optional. They have to do it. They have to continue to build like a authority in the field and demonstrate that credibility to continue to like navigate the career path here.
hmm. Interesting. Um, do you feel like there is less demand going into the United States, or are people looking for other countries to immigrate to? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the path for long-term continuity or building their lives and careers up is so much more challenged in the US. There was a lot of mobility, especially of Indian immigrants to Canada over the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic, including me. Like I was actively looking to move to Canada.
You're thinking
Um,
of Canada.
yeah, I was because I was tired of thinking. I think for me, it was never about living in the US. It was
Mm-hmm.
about being able to build a career I liked without
Mm-hmm.
to think where to live. So I was very career forward, especially in my 20s, and I didn't like that constraint of I could only do a certain job with a certain company who sponsored my visa, etc. So I wanted the freedom, and I was willing to move to Canada at that time because Canada provided like a point merit-based express entry visa. So if you just had the right qualifications, experience, and age, they wanted younger talent to immigrate. It was very conducive to immigrating and settling there. And I could start my business. The possibilities were endless.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the US, it is much more constrained. The probability of success that I went through was so much low that I actually immigrated in a visa that was created originally for Einstein to immigrate to the US.
Okay.
And obviously, I mean, it flared up so much of imposter syndrome because I was like, I'm a food scientist. I don't know if if I'm like the Einstein in my field. I had 3 years of
What do
experience.
you call that visa again?
It's EB1,
EB1. Okay.
extraordinary visa.
Okay.
So I mean, it was just a lot of lack of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Now I tell like younger professionals who are navigating similar path how they can approach it with confidence, knowing that our field qualifies, what we do matters, and how to best position that forward to like your attorney even because attorneys don't understand our field as much either,
Mm-hmm.
and that's another opportunity. So I like to work with clients who have either attorney or their company sponsoring or company's attorney sponsoring them, and just be that person who translates everything because a lot of attorneys take the client's inputs and just do like a chat gpt attorney version of it, sometimes it doesn't convey the importance of the work that's done in our field as well.
I see. So you would say you're kind of like a coach and mediator. Is that correct? Okay.
I'm a
Uh,
critique and mediator. So anything that the client writes that's passed on to the attorney, I would review it first, give them a lot of like coaching on how they can improve it. And then same with any outputs given by the attorney, I would like critique it to say how you can best show because what the US immigration office is looking for is why what we do is important to the US, how it's benefiting the consumers. And a lot of times attorneys get into the mode of saying, hey, this person developed a product that made millions of dollars. And the US government doesn't care about the millions of dollars as much as they care about the safety of consumers and public health and other things. So I think it's wiring the wording to like communicate to the audience in the way that is right for that audience.
Okay, got it. Have you seen the man? So you built this business for 3 years. Have you seen how do you? And I built a business this past year, and I realized that once you get a flywheel going, it works really well.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear how you found like. It sounds like word of mouth was kind of your strong point there, or maybe even doing these extracurricular activities that you were doing. I'd love to hear how you kind of grew your business.
Yeah, I think word of mouth is still 70% of how my clients find me. And
Mm,
especially when I have like a success with a client and when they share it with a friend or a colleague,
yeah.
then immediately there's that conviction that I can help them, right? So I have scaled the business with that sort of approach. But there's also a lot of things I've learned in terms of the amount of stress it is to be in this immigration space, especially after navigating it, getting out on the other side. I think there's a little bit of a trauma of reliving that through other clients. And especially because I care,
Okay.
I
Okay.
I care. I want the people who come to me to like succeed, especially when they are talented and have
Yeah.
all the things that make them eligible to succeed. Um, I think there's that commitment that drives the stress upwards. So I am working on figuring out a way to manage that better. I've learned a lot of what's working, what's challenging for me. So I think in terms of scalability, the stress factor still is the biggest
Always
barrier
the
to
case.
scale it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying, I think that's why I still keep it as a side hustle because there are months where I have the mental bandwidth to take on more. There are months I'm like, I'm not, like this month, I'm not interested in taking on new clients. I just want
Mm,
it to be slow. So I think keeping it as a side hustle makes it possible to like ebb and flow as things work out. Whereas if I were to make it a full time business, I definitely would think a lot differently. I'd probably get like a formal partnership with a couple of attorneys,
yeah.
really like get behind the scenes and try to like scale it in a different way. But yeah, lots of learnings for sure.
Yeah, but I think building something from scratch and doing that, I think, is impressive, right? Most people can't don't, or they want to do something, but they just can't really quite get the nudge to do so. And I would say I've been in a similar boat. And building business for me is really fun. Eventually, I did go kind of full time on these types of businesses, but and honestly, once you do it, you get addicted to it. So even if something doesn't work
Yes.
out, you just do it again, and it's easier. But I guess what have you learned from building kind of a business from a ground up, or like basically a thing that makes money from the ground up?
I think there's so much of excitement in it. I think I would, like you said, there's some level of addiction to like seeing you start your own brand, whatever product or service you're, like trying to like sell,
Mm,
solve people's problems, whether it's a consumer problem or a similar like, like a customer client problem.
yeah.
I think solving it, figuring out how to make it work, and there's so much of chaos in it that I just love. I embrace the chaos of it because at the end of the day, I think you realize you can wear more than multiple hats and you're beyond your title, right? That's what pushed me to like pivot from food science to like corporate roles within the food industry. I just wanted to maximize my potential and see what all I can do, and that makes me really happy,
Mm,
to just challenge myself. And it's a path of self actualization, right? You realize all the things you could do, and when it comes with the reward, like, I don't know, like I've had clients who are pregnant going through a very tough situation with their job, navigated immigration successfully, and just they're just relieved of that huge burden. I think that's again another rewarding point. I also think building a business in the AI world is super exciting because
yeah.
I mean, ChatGPT has been my coworker throughout the last couple of years. Like, I just brainstorm literally everything. I'm not a very creative, like color creative person. So, picking my logo, picking my brand designs, everything, I'm like, this is my target audience. I want to focus on millennials and Gen Zs in this sort of 20 to 40-year age range. So, give me colors that would make me not as serious, but like more approachable,
Mm,
like brainstorming in a way that I have enjoyed building this business with AI. I feel that's just a different experience compared to before. It's more easier to like delegate or unburden yourself from things that are not as important and prioritize things that are actually important.
Yeah, I've been building my business with ChatGPT and other tools, and I just find it as a really good intern. uh,
Yes.
like, if you don't ask it the right questions, it's not going to do a good job. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of the most important thing I've learned.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why for next year, I'm sort of toying with the idea of focusing on AI powered coaching and how I
Mm.
can like build prompts, templates that would empower people to like DIY it to some extent because my time and energy has become my constraint. So I'm trying to see how I can like simplify some of these things so I could scale but still not stretch myself and spread myself too thin.
Yes, yes. The hardest part of a so I've done both a service and a product business, and the hardest part about, well, one, product business, it just take a lot of money
Yeah,
to scale, but or service businesses, you can scale really fast, but the issue is you're limited on your time, right?
yeah.
So you have to either use other people's time or somehow outsource it in a way that's clever.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I will say, at least for me, AI has really cut into a lot of my kind of thinking time in a sense. So, for at least, I've done projects that I would have been uncomfortable with without it. So,
Yeah,
I've made templates or something that allowed me to create formulas of fields I'm not super familiar with, like candy or noodles or whatever. And it's given me a decent formula, at least spitting it out. You just have to like write it in a certain way. But I do think, like, that would have saved me like days or weeks of work, right? If I didn't
absolutely.
like plug that in. So I do agree. Like, nowadays, I think especially for a service business, since everything's kind of on the internet, it is pretty easy to set up, and you'd be surprised what you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, it's encouraging everyone to at least try it out.
Yeah, yeah. And I think building out AI agents is like the next big thing, right? Figuring
Mm-hmm.
out how to remove redundant tasks, automate your work. And it's happening in corporate as well. Like we are right now going through some sort of restructuring to adapt to this data forward, digital forward, AI forward world.
Who
And
isn't?
and it's like, and nobody knows how to do it right. And I think that's where the power of being a researcher comes in because you just experiment with it, right? You're not looking to like become something with it, but like learn what's the possibility.
Yeah, I think I've told some people about this, like, live on the podcast, but I am going to grad school next year to really figure this out, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Nice.
I think one of the things I've noticed is, like, adoption, or how to even use this stuff is really hard, and without some, I think without some research, without many things, I think time is the biggest thing, actually. Without time to kind of marinate through the technology, I think sometimes we can rush ahead of it too much.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I'm curious, like, what program is it? Is it more AI heavy, like technical, or is it more
Yeah.
like
It
applications?
it
What?
is more, yeah, it is, good question. It is more application. It is
Nice.
a food science degree, and I've convinced NC State pretty much to say, like, you should look into this. Let me work here for a bit, and
It's
let's
awesome.
figure this out. So it's really of a different. No, it's not that different, but it is a standard master's. But I was able to convince faculty to do this.
That's pretty awesome.
It's
Well,
pretty fun. Yeah,
congrats,
yeah.
and I'm excited for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't wait to make 20K a year.
Yeah.
No, just no. The consulting has actually kept me afloat for a lot of it. So, um, but yeah, I do think that that's important to realize. Like, technology shifts are coming. They're affecting your small little thing, and then it's also affecting your giant corporate entity, right? So,
Yeah.
have you felt? How do you feel, like, let's say somewhere like Coca-Cola is using AI right now, and I guess, are they integrating it? Do you feel like they're integrating it successfully, or do you feel like there's still a lot of growing pains?
I think we are still in the early stages of adoption, and I think the way it's being integrated, I don't have like the full visibility to all the different ways it's successfully used, but we have seen some early successes in some use cases, and there's a lot of internal education to like adopt and like scale it in other areas
Mm,
or leverage it well. In my own like job, there's a lot of like manual work I'm trying to like automate. So it's not necessarily using AI, but like using tools that we have that we didn't have probably 5 years ago, right?
yeah.
So I think figuring out how to use it, how to solve, and also like when you solve something, how to like educate others so they are
Yes,
finding
yes.
it easier to like follow that path. I think that's a very big thing right now, and that's why the AI agent came up, because that's something I want to figure out this in the next couple of months, to like set up some things to improve as I look at my business, as I look at my day job. I want bots to do things that I do now that I don't need to do. And being able to like figure those out is just exciting, because you unlock your time back, you unlock your energy back, right? So
Yeah, yeah. Have you been, or has Coca-Cola given you resources to learn, or have you been personally investing in learning this?
Not formally. I'm sure like Coca-Cola, like other big companies, typically have like education, support of like five
Yeah,
thousand
but
dollars or
I
so
do.
for
Okay, okay, yeah.
employees. So I could technically like say I want to do XYZ course and like invest in it.
Mm.
But right now, what I'm trying to do is like simple applications, simple ways to like adopt and learn, and using AI to teach me, right? Like just figuring out small things. That's my first goal, and then I want to also like take my career in the direction of like digital acceleration, because that is the way of the future. So I've been trying to
I
like
think you and I are on
understand.
the same path.
Yeah, yeah, I think yeah, exactly. That's why I'm so intrigued, because I had a lot of reflection over the last couple of months. And for context, I was impacted by internal restructuring. I
Hmm.
almost like lost my job.
Hmm.
And Coke gives like a 6 week period where you can like interview to find something else internally if
Hmm.
it's not a layoff and an internal restructuring situation. So I was fortunate I landed something internally, but in that brief period of time, I thought about the next 10 years, 20 years, what I want to do that will continue to serve me well long term and be exciting long term. And I mean, digital innovation is the way of the future. So I feel all industries are becoming tech industries, right? The tech infiltration is so real. So how can we take that, adapt it, and leverage it to show results in our individual fields or jobs is very, very important to stay relevant.
Yeah, if you brought up a good point. A lot of people are going through this quote restructuring. I have a friend in PepsiCo who talked about
Hmm.
essentially layoffs, and I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of specifically big food have not been doing well this year, right?
Yeah.
Double digit declines, ultra processed fears, tariffs, blah blah blah, right? So I do think that, and that creates a miasma of worry, right? It creates like this fog of like, what's going to happen to me? Am I disposable, right? Or
Hmm.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I do think that that is something I've noticed, at least, is like just this shift of like corporate care, I guess, to say. Like, I think one of the friends in PepsiCo told me, like, one of her like seniors said, like, you're in this business to take a risk of like getting divested in some other place. And like, that's probably not the best thing to say.
Yeah.
It's usually some companies are just like, no, we'll take care of you if something happens, right? But
Yeah.
you know, eh,
I think now the reality is most people are at risk in some way or other for change, and that is the corporate, realities for many not just now, it's always been that way, because
yes.
it's not a secured forever job. Things are going to change, and I think the people who can adapt and learn and pivot are going to be most set up for success, even if they end up leaving corporate or getting, like let go. I mean, if I didn't land something internally, I would have gone all the way to scaling my business
Yeah.
or trying something new, because I think it's just that mindset of being willing to like adapt and not being too set in stone that this is the path you want to be in like for 20 years from now, because we cannot predict
Oh,
that far
100%.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to have the mindset, like, even if you're like, fired or let go or
Hmm.
whatever, you have to have the mindset that you're just going to get up and keep on going again. And I
Yeah,
think you'd be surprised where you end up with after that. I will say that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and generally, you always rationalize that you're better off after the fact,
Yes.
at
Yes.
least for me. Something that I've been investing in is spending some resources on kind of doing like these AI learning courses. So one of the
Hmm.
things I got a Black Friday deal on is something called Section AI, and I think it's basically right now is webinars, and I think some perks. I need to look into a little bit more, but I do think
Hmm.
that you know there is a big gap of like, how do we actually integrate AI into or specifically just using ChatGPT, which is good enough
Yeah.
to our workforce, right? And I think I think that's going to get a lot more popular in the coming years.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Love it. So, a couple more questions. One is, what kind of advice do you usually give people to be in your position?
Um, I think couple of things, willing to take risks even when there is not a charted path or outcome established. I know a lot of people want like guaranteed success, and that's a tricky part with being a career coach because
Hmm.
people think that I can just magically make it,
Yeah, I'm
different. And
paying you.
that's
Why am I not here? Right?
Exactly. And there are some things that I don't guarantee. I don't guarantee a successful outcome, whether it's for immigration or for interviews, because it's not something I can truly to my heart like attest to. It's not within our control, some things. But what I do always think about is like maximizing their probability of success given all the constraints, right?
Mm,
Making sure that they would have the best chance at it given all the things we can optimize that are within our control. So I think the people who want to be in my position, whether it's in terms of corporate job or having like a portfolio career of doing multiple things, it's
mhm,
just being willing to experiment, try out, and take that risk. Because when I moved from R&D to non-technical role, I was extremely uncomfortable
mhm.
because in the R&D world I was doing really well. I knew like I could trust my intellect, trust what I know foundationally as a food scientist and just do a great job. With moving to the business side, it was completely like moving from like a very objective way of working to a lot of subjectivity that made me very uncomfortable. But I think embracing that and sticking with it for good enough time that you get to understand it enough and you
Yeah.
do better. So
Well, there's a curve, right?
yeah,
That's pretty common when it comes to doing new stuff, which is basically
yeah,
you feel super confident, but you're not, and then you're not confident and you're not skilled, and then you eventually get skilled and not confident, then
skilled.
you get confident and skilled, right? What's that? It's
Exactly.
a name. There's a name for it, but I forgot
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, the Matrix. So yes,
All
yes. Yeah.
right. And then the last question is where can we find you if we want to talk to you more?
LinkedIn is my landing page, so anyone who DMs me will get a response. I did have a website, but I think I've gotten like 80% or more traction from LinkedIn, so I'm just consolidating to making that my primary point of contact.
Mm,
But also my email is my first name, last name at gmail.com, so that's also another way to contact me. Um, yeah,
love it. Well, Tamana, thanks so much for being on the show.
of course. Thank you so much, Adam.
Of course, I'm gonna press stop and